So what do you see?
Two faces.
Two faces of ours. Can you see both?
I see two people trying to kiss, but there's a couple in the way.
I like it. Did you hear that? Two people trying to kiss, but there's a couple in the way. Okay, where's the clicker gone? Oh, it's down here.
Yep.
Jolly good. Is it alright if I just put it on there? Hold it. Okay. What do you see? These are classic. Woo! What am I knocking over? Water, never mind. I didn't. Classic optical illusions. And obviously you'll cotton on to the reason for it in a minute.
Young woman.
A young woman, okay. An old lady, right. So is she a young woman or an old lady? Or is she both?
The young one. The young one's chin is the old one's nose.
The young one is like this. She's looking over her shoulder. And the old one, she's like that. Oh, I won't do that because I look like her. Okay, that's that one. What do you see here? Sorry?
Face.
A face. Anything else? Sorry? A young man and a young girl. Can you see that? He's sitting, he's playing a flute, and she's sitting behind him on a rock. Or it's one great big face. I mean, it's a little bit harder because you've got the trees and everything kind of putting you off. But you've got the choice there. And finally, this one does my head in. I really struggle. I mean, I hate this. I'm like, I can't. My brain can't cope with that one.
Well, it's a man's face, but which way around?
Exactly. Is he looking directly at you and you haven't got the whole of his face, or is he looking in profile?
He's definitely looking at you, but there's no mouth face.
Yeah. But I mean, that's just weird, isn't it? It's just so weird. But point is, it's your perspective, and we all see things in a different way. And as Rachel has just been going through with us, we all see God in different ways. And also, you know, our experience of our own fathers are very, very different. And we all have a different perspective of what fatherhood means, usually based on our own experience. And perhaps it's made us, you know, who we are, if we're men, as fathers. It's made us who we've become. And maybe it's affected our relationship with God because of our own experience and what we've either had to suffer or go through, or what we've enjoyed as children. I asked if we could sing Father God, I Wonder, because lots of you knew Dad, and as he got older, that was probably almost the only song he could remember to sing, and you probably remember him singing it. And I tried to find, I've got a recording somewhere on my phone, and I tried to find it because I thought if I could play that, that would be brilliant. But I couldn't find it anywhere, so I couldn't play it for you, and besides which you might have all been in tears at the end. Not so good. So, what does the word father mean to you? Does it bring to mind someone who was kind and gentle and generous and patient and encouraging? Someone who disciplined you fairly and justly? Or does it bring to mind someone who was harsh and aggressive, someone who was mean and angry, someone who was critical, someone who would punish you unfairly? When I think of my own dad, obviously you knew him when he was much, much older, and everyone said, what a lovely, kind gentleman he is, how gentlemanly, how lovely. And he always was. But there were times when we saw him being very negative, and there were times when we would wish he would just be a bit stronger, be a bit more forceful, be a bit more opinionated, because he used to kind of just bend with what people said too easily. So for me, my own relationship with God was a bit uncertain, because my relationship with my dad was a bit uncertain. until I really had to look after him in his later years and developed a completely different bond of love with him. My in-laws were another matter completely, because I've been married twice, some of you know, and my first father-in-law had a problem with anger, and he came to know Jesus in the last months of his life, and I wish he'd known him a lot sooner, because it would have made him a different person, because he could be very violent. I only witnessed it once, but it was really devastating, the effect it had on the family. They ran out of the room, and I thought, you bully, I'm not going. And I just sat there, and after a time I could hear him breathing and trying to calm himself down, and after a time he said, you might want to go and join the others. I went, okay. And I thought, I'll go now. But I wasn't going to go and just let this bully kind of win, if you like. And my second father-in-law, I mean, they were both lovely men in other ways, you know, but my second father-in-law, he was very particular about their house, so much so that when I was there with my then husband and the 3 grandchildren, the son wanted to kick a football around. So he was told, okay, all 3 of you can go out and kick a football around together, but you either take your shoes off and you play on the lawn in your socks, or you kick it on the patio, but you don't kick it hard. Because father-in-law used to do diamond stripes on the lawn, not just this way, not just that way, but crisscrossed, and he had a pristine lawn. And my stepson was playing with a yo-yo. Well, there was a table with lots of crystal ornaments on, and he absolutely freaked out. It's like, not inside the house, go outside immediately. So again, strange perceptions of what a father could be like. But what do we think God is like? Is our image of God as someone who's judgmental, someone who's tough and who won't put up with any nonsense, someone who's quite frightening, someone who gets angry very easily, someone who lords it over us, who's impatient, he's distant, he's unapproachable, he's unkind, he's disinterested in our personal lives? Is that our image of God? Or do we see him as a gentle, benign old man with a beard sitting on a fluffy cloud, who's very nice, but he's a bit out of control, the state of the world, it's an absolute mess, and our God is kind of like, oh, I don't know what to do, it's all a bit, out of my hands, and he's a bit weak and a bit powerless, a bit soft. Or even as my second ex-husband said, oh, Bev's got an imaginary friend. And he used to love saying that to people that we knew, that I'd got an imaginary friend, that God to him wasn't someone who was real. Or maybe he's one of these to you. He's your friend, he's your guide, he's your advisor, he's your counsellor, he's your provider, your healer, your helper in some way. You know what film that's from, don't you? And I always forget, is it Evan? No, it's Bruce Almighty, isn't it? Yeah, not Evan Almighty, that's the other one. Yeah, love those films, got to watch them again, they're brilliant. But that's who God can be to us, that's who he wants to be to us. And in the Bible, we've got loads and loads of examples of who God is to us as Father. The very first one that came to my mind when I thought about this subject was, God said, let us make human beings in our own image and likeness. And I thought, well, that's a bit of a funny one. When you're thinking about Father God, what does that mean exactly? And then I realised that actually, we are what God is like. We are what God looks like. And when we behave according to his ways and his will, then we are behaving like God behaves. Because God made us to be like him. He intended us to be exactly like him. But it's because of our willfulness, it's because of the stuff that we decide we know better than him, that we've kind of broken that image and we've kind of spoiled it. And we've kind of changed who he is in us. That must break his heart. And he's a father to the orphans. He defends the widows. I love that. I've got a daughter-in-law now, but she's an orphan. because her parents both died some years ago, so she was quite young. And, you know, that's really sad, but God is her father, he's her protector. And obviously she's married, she's got my son. But God to her is someone really, really special. And in Isaiah 9 it says, a child will be born to us, and one of the names that God was given is Everlasting Father, Father who lives forever. So he's not someone who comes and goes in and out of our lives. And some of us have experienced fathers who've been like that, who've not been constant, who've not always been there for us. They've been someone who've just flitted through, or they've been someone who's failed us in some way, and that's been hard. That's not been easy to cope with at all. This was an interesting verse that I found in John chapter 5. It says, the Father judges no one. And it actually says that it's Jesus who's been given the job of judging now, that it's not the Father's job at all. And I find that quite curious, because we always think of God as being the judge of all men. But the verse actually goes on and it says, the Father has given the Son power to do all the judging. And in the Old Testament, God was the judge. He was the judge of nations and of individuals. But in the New Testament, we live under a new covenant, a new agreement with God. And it's Jesus who's going to come back and who's going to do the judging. The Lord disciplines those he loves as a father the son he delights in. I've known Christians who said to me, God doesn't punish us, God doesn't discipline us, because we live in different times now. We live in times of Jesus, who died to show us love and mercy and grace. But what father doesn't discipline his children if he really loves them? I mean, there's a difference between disciplining and punishing just because he's lost his rag, or just because his children are irritating him or something. And God disciplines us. And there are different things that can happen in our lives that I truly believe are God's way of correcting us and bringing us back into line with what he knows is the best for us. And for me, personally, when I had cancer, that was God's way of bringing me back into line, because of stuff that had been going on in my life that I'd been thinking I could get away with, and I'd been saying, I know it's wrong, God, but I'm going to do it anyway, and I know one day I'll come back to you. And for me personally, this is my perspective, and I know a lot of people will disagree with me, but for me, it was God saying, enough. You cannot get away with this. And I had cancer and I was ill for a year, if you like. And for me, that was God bringing me back into line, because that year I got closer to God. I got closer to into his word, in understanding the truths of the Bible, so much more deeply and more intimately than I have had. And I got closer to family and to friends. I had the most amazing year physically. You could say it was the worst year of my life, but actually it was one of the best years of my life. And God brought me right back into alignment with him. And I made certain agreements with God during that year that I haven't broken, because I know I can't, because I know I mustn't, because I know God has got something better for me by living according to what he wants. It's a tough one, but sometimes God brings things into our lives by way of discipline. He's the Father who's full of mercy and God of all comfort. And I say that after the previous verse, because he doesn't just punish us because he gets sick and tired of us, but because he loves us. And I love that verse that says, which of you fathers, if your son asked for bread, would give him a stone, or if he asked for a fish, would give him a scorpion? I mean, you just wouldn't, because it's just not in human nature, and it's not in God's nature to do things like that. God is merciful. God is the God of all comfort. And he says to us, I'll be your father, and you will be my sons and daughters. If we really understood what that meant, how amazing it must be to recognise that we are actually his children. He's a family man. It's all about family for God. Every good and perfect gift comes down from the Father who created the heavenly lights. These lights create shadows that move, but the Father does not change like these shadows. He loves to give us good gifts. And when he makes his mind up to do something, he doesn't change his mind. He doesn't chop and change. He makes his mind up to do something, and he does it because he loves us. Because the Father has loved us so much that we are called children of God, and we really are his children. And Jesus answered the question by saying, I'm the way, the truth and the life, and the only way to the Father is through me. And if we want to know what God is like, we look at Jesus, because Jesus set the example of godly living. He set the example of what it is to be in a relationship with God the Father. And he never did anything without taking time out to spend with the Father and to listen to Father. And he says, I do what I see the Father doing. I like the fact that God is the source and the end of our lives. I like the fact that he gives us life, and at the very end when we leave, it's because he's decided that it's the right time, and it's because we're going to meet with him and we're going to live with him forever if we believe in him and follow his way. And I love the fact that God knows what we need before we ask him. And I love the fact that he's lavished his love on us in providing Jesus to bear the punishment and to free us from the guilty weight of all the stuff that we've done wrong. And I love the fact that forgiveness is something that Father God gives to us. It's not something that we work to earn, and that it's more valuable and more costly than anything we could work for. I love those facts about God, our Father. And I'm going to finish by reading you a story. If I can find where I put it. There it is. So sit back, and if you're sitting comfortably, I will begin. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who wanted a pretty plastic pearl necklace that she could see at the end of the counter as her mum was paying for some groceries. It was £5.99. And her mother told her if she helped around the house and waited until her 5th birthday the following week, she could save up that money and she could buy it for herself. So Jenny did some dusting, she dried some dishes, she kept her room tidy, and on her birthday, Granny put a shiny £2 coin in her birthday card. She was so excited. She got her money box, and with her mum's help she counted out the pennies to see how much was in there. And she realised that she'd got exactly what she needed. So back they went to the supermarket, and the pearl necklaces were still there. Jenny was able to buy the necklace that she wanted. Having saved enough, she bought the necklace, and she wore it everywhere, all the time, even in bed. The only time she took it off was when she went swimming. One bedtime, as her dad finished reading a story, he asked her, Jenny, do you love me? Yes, Daddy, I love you so much, she readily replied. Will you give me your pearls? Oh, Daddy, I love you, but can I give you my favourite teddy instead of the pearls? I worked so hard on them and I really, really want them. I'm sorry, Daddy. Don't worry, darling, that's okay. And as he kissed her cheek, he said, just remember I love you very much. Sweet dreams. Good night. A week later, the same conversation happened again. The father asked if he could have the pearls. Jenny said, no. And he reminded her that he loved her, and she went to sleep. Time passed, and it was her dad's turn to read her bedtime story again, and once more he asked for the pearls. And when she said, "No," he asked her again, "Do you love me?" "Yes, Daddy, you know I love you. Why do you keep asking me?" "Enough to give me your pearls?" "Daddy, I love my pearls too. Can't I give you something else?" And again, Father kissed her cheek as he said, "Don't worry. Always remember I love you very much. Sweet dreams. Good night." That night, Jenny couldn't sleep. The next day at story time, Jenny asked for Daddy to put her to bed instead of Mummy. And she was sitting cross-legged on her bed, waiting for him to come in. He noticed her chin was trembling. A big tear rolled down her cheek. "What is it, Jenny? What's the matter?" She didn't say anything, but she lifted up her little hand and she opened it. There was the little pearl necklace, and with a quiver she said, "Yeah, Daddy, it's for you." He smiled tenderly. He took the necklace and held her tightly in a big bear hug while she sobbed sad tears and happy tears. Then he reached in his pocket and pulled out a velvet-covered box, which he gave to her. Jenny looked up at him with big, wondering eyes and opened the box. Slowly, she drew out a string of beautiful, genuine pearls and gazed at her father in amazement, not knowing what to say. "I know how precious your pearls are to you, Jenny," he said, "but they're not real. They're a copy, and I was waiting for you to give them up so that I could give you the real thing. I am giving you something much more valuable and beautiful that you haven't had to work for." "Thank you, Daddy," Jenny whispered. "I will treasure it."